This is an All Ears English podcast, episode 921, Why Lindsay Cried in Nicaragua. Welcome to the All Ears English podcast, downloaded more than 50 million times. We believe in connection, not perfection, with your American hosts, Lindsay McMahon, the English adventurer, and Michelle Kaplan, the New York radio girl, coming to you from Boston and New York City, USA. And to get your transcripts delivered by email every week, go to allearsenglish.com/subscribe. What is a language breakdown and what makes it happen? How can you make sure that you transform your next language breakdown into connection? Hear Lindsay's story today directly from her experience in Nicaragua. Hey, Jessica, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. How are you? I mean, I'm just, normal life, Portland stuff. But you just got back from a crazy adventure.
I did. I just had a crazy adventure in Nicaragua, and it was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, it was hot, it was sticky, it was humid, it was bright, lots of sunshine and crazy activities, but I survived.
You did something on a volcano? What was that about?
Yeah, I went volcano boarding, which is something that sounds really crazy, right? Especially when you're talking about hiking to the top of an active volcano. And when we got to the top of it, the winds were insane. It was insane. And then we just bombed down the volcano on a board, basically. So I didn't go very fast myself. Like, I kept it to under 20 kilometers per hour, but the fastest guy in our group was like 75 kilometers per hour.
Jeez, man. Were there any injuries? Like, no. Everybody was fine?
Everybody was fine. Usually it's a lot worse. Like, the anticipation was so much worse. I was totally freaked out when we got to the top, and I could hardly hear the instructions, and the wind was blowing so hard.
Jeez.
And I just felt like things were really casual. And, I was like, well, I'm about to bomb down a volcano. Am I going to die here in Nicaragua? Like, what's going on?
So James and I just started watching this show called Brain Games. James is he's very into science. He loves these types of shows.
Yeah.
And it was talking about, there's this whole episode on fear. And it's not actually the thing itself that causes fear. It's the anticipation. It's the buildup. It's this thing you create in your mind. That is the fear. It's not the actual event itself.
That is so true. That's relevant to that day because there was such a buildup. There was such a buildup the days before the event, the activity, and then the ride out into the volcano, and then hiking the volcano, and the instructions, and let's go visit this crater first, and let's do this. Let's just get it done. Let's just get it done.
I know. Just get it over with so I know I'm not dead.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I finished, I could have a beer and relax, and I felt good. I felt good. Very dirty, though, like volcano dust in the ears and the feet and everywhere.
That's insane. Oh, God. That is a once in a lifetime experience. That's amazing.
Yeah, you should see our photos. We had to wear these jumpsuits that kind of look like fat versions of what a prisoner would wear. They were orange, but they were really strong and thick, but they were super big. So I looked like I weighed 200 pounds. It was so funny.
I'm picturing sumo wrestler prison suits happening.
Oh, it was so crazy. Yeah, it was so crazy. But before we get, I think you made a good point earlier, Jessica, when you said that, fear comes more from the envisioning of the experience, not the actual experience. And I feel like that plays into language too, especially when there's some kind of a language breakdown, But before we get into that, Jessica, I want to remind our listeners about a couple of important things coming up here, right?
Yes.
So we have our urban immersion adventures this summer. Jessica, you're going to be joining me in Boston. Is that right?
Woohoo! Yeah, I'm planning on it already.
It's
going to be amazing. I mean, last summer, guys, I don't know if you remember us talking about this, but it was incredible. I mean, we're talking about life, changing experiences, right? Once in a lifetime experiences. That is included. That experience, just personally for me in Boston, that was amazing. And I know it was for the students as well.
It was. I mean, we literally had some feedback from one particular student who said that the experience literally changed his life and he's coming back again this summer. So that is the coolest thing.
So
that is
awesome.
the coolest thing. But guys, you don't want to miss out on this because the prices are going up again on April 1st. Okay. So that is the ultimate deadline before the price hikes up again. So you want to get your application in at allearsenglish.com/immersion. That's IMMERSION. Get it in before April 1st.
Yeah, guys, don't miss out on this. Don't wait until after April 1st. Don't keep putting it off. Right? Like, oh, it's the summer, but I have some months yet to do this. Do it now so you can put it in your calendar. Look forward to it. Get that positive anticipation going, right? Like we're talking about like the fear anticipation. That's not this. This is something that can motivate you daily to include more English in your life because you're like, what? I'm gonna go on this like immersion adventure in Boston or New York. So I'm gonna sort of put an uptick in my language.
Yeah, it could cause you to like really set the bar higher for yourself before you get here, and you could end up being a totally different speaker by the end of the program. Such a good idea, for sure. Such a good idea, and
save money. Like do it before April 1st.
Exactly. Save money. Go ahead, get in the program, get your spot, book your flight, get your. People have already started booking their location, their reservations, their Airbnb. So grab a spot and grab the best places to stay in Boston and New York now while you still can, guys. All right, cool.
It's going to be incredible.
And then we also have one other thing we want to mention. What's coming up in April is what, Jessica? Where are we going?
Tokyo!
We are going to Tokyo.
I actually got a guidebook for Tokyo because I'm so excited. It's it's just what we were talking about before, that positive motivation, right?
Awesome.
So it's encouraging me to also learn more. Guys, Lindsay and I are coming to Tokyo to do, this is a groundbreaking first live international event for All Ears English. This is historical, you guys. And I think one of the parts I'm most looking forward to is the live podcast recording. You guys can be in the audience, participate in the episode with us. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, it's going to be so cool. It's going to be so cool. And it's coming up soon, right? Because this episode is coming out around, I believe, the end of March. And you guys want to sign up right now. So go over, the spots are filling up. The spots are now filled for Kizuna VIP, but there are still spots left in Kizuna level, which if you choose that level, you will be able to attend the happy hour and the live podcast recording, guys.
Cool.
All right. So go on over there to allearsenglish.com/Tokyo and get your spot. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So Lindsay, I believe you wanted to share a story with our listeners today. Kind of a vulnerable moment for you.
Oh, yeah. And, I feel good about sharing this because I think this will help a lot of our listeners. I also feel a little bit scared about sharing it because it's vulnerable. I'm going to tell you guys about a breakdown that I had. Oh, gosh. We have this term in English, a nervous breakdown, right? What does that actually mean, Jessica, in English?
A nervous breakdown is when you lose control over your emotions. Like you feel like the moment is completely out of your control, so you panic.
Yes.
Often tears are involved, and it's just it's just losing control and panicking completely.
Exactly. So let's take that concept and let's call this a language breakdown, right? So this is nothing that's going to put us in the hospital, nothing like that, guys. But this was a little mini crisis that I had I think that if you guys tune in today and pay attention to the anatomy of this language breakdown, why this happened, what the factors were that created it, it could help you guys to normalize this and also to know what to do if it happens to you. Because I know this happens to our listeners. We get questions about this kind of thing all the time, Jessica.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, this is sort of the extreme example of when you guys lose control in any conversation and you stop communicating, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing that was so hard about this language breakdown I had was that it happened on the last day in Nicaragua. So I had been speaking for a long time, speaking well, but all of a sudden that day, what I could do the day before, I couldn't do. I just couldn't listen. I couldn't seem to understand. I hit like this brick wall. And that's the part that's hardest about this.
That has totally happened to me before when I've been living in other countries, Spanish-speaking countries.
Yep.
Some days I am on fire, man. I'm fine. I'm just like making jokes and chatting. And then all of a sudden the next day, I can't understand a thing. Like, it is just not a good Spanish day.
It's so frustrating because we think that our language progress should be linear. But I found that it's not always linear, guys. It's not linear. And hopefully this episode will inspire our listeners to know that and be okay with that. All right. So
that's the thing. Yeah. Any true progress, it's not linear. It's recursive.
Yeah.
You take a step back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps sideways. And guys, that is normal, right? I think, like Lindsay said, just knowing that there will be tough days will help you to deal with them better.
Exactly. So I'm going to tell our listeners exactly what happened here, go real deep into this, and then we're going to break down the 5 kind of pieces of this breakdown, the reasons that I think it happened, the things that contributed to it, so that our listeners can watch out for those things when this happens to them. All right? Sound good?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes, perfect.
So the deal was, during our trip to Nicaragua, I was traveling with a friend, and my friend is good at listening. Her level is not as high as me in Spanish, but she's a good listener. Her listening's good, but she doesn't like to speak. So throughout the pretty much the whole program, most of the time in Nicaragua, I was the primary speaker, but I actually liked that. I liked that. I liked being the one to speak and to connect. I like verbal expression in general. I think we both do, Jessica. Being
sort of a leader and helping out the people around you. Yeah,
exactly. I like that. So I was settled in that role. Like, I was comfortable. That was like my zone of genius. And my friend had her other zones of genius. Like, she's really good at navigating directions in neighborhoods, and she knew exactly where to go. And I would have had no idea how to get back to our Airbnb, like, anytime.
Directions are definitely not my zone of genius either.
So the concept was, we had our zones of genius and we were working within them, and that worked great. So the day that this happened, we had rented a car our very last day in Nicaragua, and we had driven all around the highlands, right? And I was the one who drove because I was the only one who could drive stick shift. So I had taken on, and driving in Nicaragua is different from driving in the States, right?
I'd imagine.
You're dealing with all kinds of crazy things coming out at you in the road. But by the time we got to Managua, we were going to the airport to return the car, and we needed to get a ride to our hotel. And it was only 4 minutes away. But what happened, where the breakdown occurred, was that we had an exchange with the woman at the rental car company, and I was completely lost, right? I could have had that conversation the day before, but for some reason that day, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't get what she was saying.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So it was like did you feel sort of paralyzed?
Paralyzed.
Like, this was completely out of your control. Like, she might as well have been speaking like Martian,
Chinese,
or something.
German, whatever. Exactly. Russian. I mean, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't hold up in that conversation. And there are 5 things that I think created that. So let's dive into it.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing, on this show, Jessica, we've talked about frames, right? And like, what have we said about frames? Like, expectations of what the person's going to say to us.
Exactly. So this is something that I studied a lot when I was doing the applied linguistics masters, was creating a script. Like, everybody has scripts in their head, and that's sort of a shortcut for teachers to help students quickly, is to help them access the script for any situation, right?
Yeah.
So what happens. You've rented a car in your own language. You've been into a restaurant in your own language. What is usually said? What questions are asked and answered? Because probably it's going to be those same questions and answers, even in another language.
Exactly. I love it. So that's why this is so important. And in this case, the script was a little bit different. We had actually already returned the car, and it wasn't regarding, our exchange wasn't actually about returning the car. It was about, we had gone back and we had asked the woman to make a phone call for us because we were trying to get our shuttle from the hotel to come and pick us up. But the frame of mind and my expectations were loaded around being in Managua, because people had warned us about arriving there at night, and it was night. There had been, we had been having conversations around, let's make sure we get there during the day so it's safe. People had said, just be careful when you're there. There were also taxi drivers kind of following us around the airport. And so there was a certain energy that was making me a little bit fearful. Like, I've traveled to Colombia, I've traveled to different relatively, risky places, but for some reason I had this idea that I was going to be taken advantage of.
And that's always there if you're in a different place, whether it's like this fear of being taken advantage of, or this you had named the fear already, or other people had named it for you. I think there's a general anxiety when we're in a new place because you don't know what to expect, but other people had layered onto that for you, being like, okay, well, expect maybe some violence at the worst, and maybe at the least somebody's gonna steal your money.
Yeah, it's true. So when you come into a scenario expecting something, but you get something totally different, it throws you off. Right. So this is kind of the danger when we teach our listeners to have frames. And I think it's good to have frames, but also know that our frames and our scripts could be completely wrong.
Well, the connection part is so important. On our other podcast on IELTS Energy, we've been talking about writing templates and versus writing flexibility and how both are important. That it's the same idea here, right? Yeah. Yes, it is necessary to have scripts in your head. Your brain needs to be warmed up. You need to have realistic expectations and ideas of what you're going to do. But at the same time, if you don't connect with that speaker and truly listen or truly be present in the situation, then you're going to miss something. You're going to get lost, and then a breakdown will happen.
And then the tears start flowing. And that is what happens.
And then you cry.
And then you just break down and cry. And that's the breakdown, right? So I mean, in this case, what did happen was we went up, and as usual, I was the one that was going to ask the question. I was going to ask, could you make this phone call to our hotel so we can order the shuttle? And what she said to me in Spanish was that, they're going to charge you. I'll just have my guy. She said, I'll call, the expression chaval, mi chaval. Like, I understood that. She said that. Okay. But what I thought she was trying to do was have me use their service and charge me more. I just had that assumption. And there were definitely some stereotypes there. I admit it for sure. But that's what came to my mind. That's just because of all this energy around coming to Managua. But actually what she was doing was she's trying to help us out. She actually ended up giving us a free ride. She called her guy and we jumped in his car and he brought us for free to the hotel, which is just 4 minutes away. So I missed it. I completely just overrode what she was saying based on what I thought she should be saying or would be saying. Hey guys, if you love the show, be sure to hit subscribe on your podcast player so that you never miss a single episode, and leave us a review in iTunes. Tell us what you want to learn on the show and we'll announce your name. Thanks, guys.
That's amazing. So it's like, instead of connecting, like you were in your head about other stuff, and you thought you heard things that actually weren't said.
Exactly.
But I could see why, though. I mean, not only are you in a different place, it's night, people have given you warnings, but there's also something to be said also, like, for approaching the situation as a woman.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
And there's an extra layer of fear for women, even though you were with friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Women traveling and then having to get into some dude's car that you don't know.
That's so true. Exactly. I was really heightened. And so that was kind of the first piece. It's about frames, expectations. But you're right. We do have to be careful, especially as a woman. And that's where it got all confused. And then there's another piece that I think created this language breakdown, and it's around identity.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I liked the idea that I was the one speaking Spanish for us. Like, it gave me a confidence boost. And I had this idea that, okay, this is the value that I bring to this trip. We're getting real vulnerable here with our listeners. And this is probably a confidence issue for me that I need to work on. But my idea was like, okay, this is my zone of genius. This is what I do for us in this trip. And all of a sudden, when that was stripped from me, I didn't have that anymore. And it created a real confidence drop. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. That happens too. That's something that I need to work on as well. I think, we all define ourselves in certain ways, right? And that's how we can handle the world, basically. If you just throw yourself out there and you have no idea of who you are or what you stand for, you can't be in a situation. You don't know how to be. But at the same time, like having strong identity is definitely important. Knowing your strengths and being confident is definitely important. But that's also something I've noticed about myself. If this perceived strength is challenged,
yeah,
then all of a sudden I access this total insecurity and then I get angry and or sad because I'm like, that's not, but I'm the person. Like I should know that. And like, instead of being able to be flexible, then you just freeze up because you're like, well, if I'm not that, who am I?
Exactly. So I think the takeaway for our listeners on this part of the whole anatomy of this breakdown identity, guys, is that just realize that you're so much more than just an English speaker. You bring so much more to the adventures, to the encounters, to the groups that you're in than just being able to speak. Right? It's about your atmosphere. Completely. It's about how you treat people. It's about a lot of different things. Let's not put ourselves in this little box and say, this is what I do. This is what I contribute. And then it won't be so bad when we just don't get it at one moment.
Exactly. And I think also looking at a strength as how you deal with adversity as well. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Like when you do start realizing that, like, okay, if I'm challenged, I break down. So how can I fix that? How can I get past that when it happens? So when you are able to face a challenge to your identity with strength, with flexibility, then that's another strength, right?
Yes.
Then you could look back and be like, oh my God, like I handled that really well. It's sort of this idea of like coming away as a bigger person.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like being able to rise above your perceived inadequacy when it's not an inadequacy. Everybody has tough days, you guys. And nobody is 110% perfect at anything.
Exactly.
And every situation like that is uncomfortable is a learning opportunity, right?
Oh, completely.
And so like this episode today came out of this experience of Lindsay's, which is a learning opportunity now for her and all of you guys.
Yeah. Love it.
I think also just the flexibility portion of these first two steps is really the key.
Yeah, it's a lot about being kind of supple and able to move and come back from things, and it's really it's a skill that we can build. It's definitely a skill that we can build. As long as we can take that first step and recognize when it's happening and that we need to work on it, for sure. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Love it. And then there are 3 other things that I think contributed to this breakdown real quick. So we'll just go through them real quick. And so the third thing I think was the speaking speed. So this is more of an objective thing, right? So we had been in Ometepe Island, which is like this relaxed small island, like population 25,000, whatever, a small place. We had been in Leon, which is a city, but it's got a slower pace. And then we got to Managua and people were speaking a lot faster, right? So I could have expected faster speaking speed, but I guess I wasn't thinking about it, so it caught me off guard.
I think so. Taking a step back, right? Like that's the first way I think to deal with this. For all 3 of these steps we've mentioned so far. First, taking a step back, looking at the situation and thinking, okay, the frame in my head is not working. Like this is not what I expect, and just recognize that, right? And then the identity portion, again, taking a step back and saying, okay, well, I'm not. This is making me feel self-conscious right now. Okay, again, just take a step back and recognize that. And then be active about it, right? First, just accept the situation as it is in the present and then react to it slowly. Slow down the situation. I think we've mentioned other phrases in previous shows about how to slow down the situation to understand the speaker and connect. And this is the point in the framework when you can do that. Right? When you can just stop the situation and start over. Okay, let me just, first of all, can you slow down a little bit? I'm going to just repeat my first question and start again.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with asking someone to slow down. It's possible to do, guys, but we get into this fast kind of like snowball effect, right? But I think that today, if our listeners know what to look out for, then they'll be able to slow that down, as you said, Jessica. I mean, another factor here is the mindset. My mindset at the time of this conversation, or my readiness for this conversation. I mean, this happened in the evening around 7 p.m. I was tired. I was depleted from this vacation of like crazy adrenaline pumping activities.
And volcanoes.
I had been driving about 8 hours that day with a stick shift and a tiny car that I wasn't totally comfortable in that car because it was like a toy car. It was like a Suzuki. It would have crushed in like 10 seconds if we had gotten into an accident. So I was nervous about it, right?
Yeah.
And then, you're driving on the roads. There's chickens, there's dogs, there's beat up cars that you're trying to pass. You're trying to pass a bus, and the bus has got like exhaust in your face, and there are motorbikes without headlights. There are crazy things. Hot day, rain, windy curves. So all of that actually does, like, I think we should realize how much those things weigh on our mind, and they make us tired. They really do. So if we're going to go into a conversation and expect the same performance after a day like that, then we're fooling ourselves, right? We have to check in with ourselves. Like, where am I right now in terms of my readiness for this conversation?
So I think that's another message, right? That's coming out of this is first the flexibility, but being self-aware, right? Being okay, being honest with yourself and the person you're talking to. So here's the connection part. So first connect with yourself, be like, I'm tired, man. That is okay. Right. And so that is why, and this is sort of why it's the fourth step, like being like, okay, so that's why the previous three things are bothering me. Like, that's why that stuff happened, because I'm tired. That is fine. And then maybe connect that to the other person, right? Like after starting the conversation over, you could be like, listen, I've been driving for 8 hours today. Could you give me a moment? Maybe like get a drink of water and come back and start over.
Yeah, exactly. So that connection, I love that you're bringing that in here. I could have shared, like, I've been all over the country today in a stick shift car, a tiny Suzuki car, and I'm a little freaked out right now. Like, I'm a little exhausted. That could have been a fun laugh, because she was actually very friendly. She was actually very helpful. She was smiling. I completely ignored the verbal cues, the nonverbal cues rather. And I went to goes back to those frames and scripts. But yeah, I could have connected right there and shared a story.
You were too caught up in your head about the stuff we've been talking about. And then guys, like that's what blocks you off, right? Yep. When you're too much in your head instead of being present in the situation.
Exactly. I mean, that's it. Those are the first four. And then there's one other important thing I think we should just reiterate for our listeners is this idea that, what is happening right now shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be experiencing it, right? So this is an immediate block. It's kind of like it cuts off that affective filter that we've talked about over the last couple of years, Jessica. It actually puts up that brick wall because I'm spending like calories in my brain thinking, what's happening? This shouldn't be happening. I should be better. Right. And we talk about this actually a lot in my Buddhist practice. Part of my Buddhist practice is learning how to just kind of be okay with things as they are. Take out that should. Oh, this shouldn't happen. I shouldn't feel this way, because that's what actually hinders us. It's not so much what's happening.
Yeah, no, exactly. For some reason, for the past 2 weeks for me, there's been a whole bunch of stuff that I thought shouldn't be happening. It just seems like just sometimes, guys, the world is off kilter. Yeah. And it's just nothing is the script that you expect. But that's exactly right. It's that it happens all the time. That's life. And you can't force yourself onto life, right? Yep. Life is going to go on without you, without what your expectations are. No matter what you're thinking, life is going to throw stuff at you that you don't expect. So this last step is really important, guys. Just like the sort of entitlement, right? Like, I've worked hard. I've been speaking Spanish for 10 days. I'm a leader. Like, I deserve to control this situation.
Right.
Like, strip that down. Just be like, it's all right. This trip has been great. And nothing can be 100% great. So let's deal with this and move on.
Exactly. And because I wasn't able to do any of those things, I ended up in the hostel. We sat down, once we did get back to the hotel, we sat down for some dinner, and I just broke down and started crying. And I was just like, I told my travel partner what was going on and how I felt and all this stuff. But it took me a couple of days to reflect, like, why did that actually happen? And how could this maybe help our listeners? So, I mean, I think for the takeaway today, Jessica, I think for our listeners, guys, expect this to happen. Expect this to happen. This is the language breakdown. Today we've shown you what the anatomy is of this language breakdown, and you should predict this for yourself, but it's okay if it happens. It's normal.
I think this is another script. Right?
Yeah.
I think you could look at this as a breakdown situation that will definitely happen. And you know what, guys? It's happened in your first language too, because of all of these factors. I think everything we're talking about today happens just in life. It's not just because it's another language, right?
Yeah.
We're all tired. Unexpected stuff happens. But if you have a script for dealing with the unexpected situation, which is first like check in with yourself and then check in with the other person and be honest about what's happening. And then it's okay to start over.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love that. So today has been a little bit of a longer episode, but what we wanted to get vulnerable with you guys today and show you a real life example. I love it when we get your questions on this show, but when we can share our real experiences, I think it makes it more real for you guys, right? So we are also experiencing these things ourselves, okay, out there in the world.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And I don't think we'd be able to connect with you guys or be effective teachers in any sense of the word unless we could be honest and vulnerable, because that's empathy. Because then we could look at students and be like, I've been there. Like, I just cried yesterday. It's fine. Let's talk about it and learn.
We're both criers. I think. That's awesome. That's great. All right. Awesome. All right, guys. So let us know. Come back to allearsenglish.com. Type 921 in the search bar. If you are so daring, type in and let us know about your language breakdown. What happened? Yeah. What created it? When did it happen? Give us the details. We want to hear about your feedback, guys. And what are you going to do next time to take these steps to be tuned into connection and just build a script for this kind of a breakdown? I love it.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Definitely post, guys. Make yourself vulnerable. Make yourself honest, right? I think that's an awesome sort of bookend to this episode.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today, Jessica, and processing this. This has been good. I feel like I've been to a therapy session.
Oh, God. Okay. So I'll charge you $1,000 for the therapy.
Well, that's expensive.
Well, that's the price of progress,
Price of progress. Awesome. All right, cool. We are out of here for today. We'll see you guys back on this show very soon.
Have a good day, Lindsay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to All Ears English. And if you need a 7 or higher on your IELTS exam to achieve your life vision, then our Insider Method can get you there. Start with our free video series masterclass. Get video 1 now at allearsenglish.com/INSIDER. And if you believe in connection, not perfection, then subscribe to our show on your phone or on your computer. See you next time.